welcome to another episode on the Criminal Calendar. We have a guest who's come a very long way today, MC Beaton.
How are you, Barbara?
I'm
very nice to us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And you can tell from the little bit of her voice I just let you hear, although I interrupted, that she's really from Scotland.
Yes, I'm originally from Glasgow, but we had a croft house up in Sutherland in the north of Scotland for a while. And Sutherland was actually the background for the Hamish Macbeth books. Although it started in an odd way. I was living in Brooklyn when we went to Sutherland to learn to fly cast for salmon. I couldn't care less, but my husband wanted to fish for salmon. And we were in this fishing school. There were just 11 of us in the wilderness of Sutherland, these weird twisted mountains. And there was this woman who was driving me mad. She was very clumsy and very, very snobbish. She backed over the packed lunches. She got fishing hooks embedded in people's necks and didn't apologize. So while they were all thinking about the best way and will they get a big one today, I was thinking, wouldn't her body look nice rolling down into the salmon pools with a leader tied round her neck, you know?
Right.
And I began to work out, you see, at that time I read nothing but detective stories, and I was very excited. So I went back to New York, and my editor then for the Hamish Macbeth was Hope Dillon. And we were walking along Fifth Avenue, and I was talking about the setting and the murder and the murderee, and she said, "Who's your detective?" And I hadn't thought of one, so I said, "The Village Bobby." She said, "What's his name?" And I said, "Hamish Macbeth." So Hamish Macbeth was born in Fifth Avenue in New York.
Wow, that is a complex tale. Well, how did you get from, if you were born in Glasgow, which is really quite urban and I think traditionally thought of as a blue-collar part of Scotland, right? There were a lot of workers, ship workers, and...
It was, when I grew up, it was like, it was like a Victorian city. There were slums in Western Europe then.
Right.
Very, very industrial, shipbuilding, blast furnaces, chemical works. My sister says that both of us have got big chests because we're like these things that live in the desert and adopt
right.
in order to survive, that we had to do something to cope with the pollution. So my first job, I was fiction buyer in a bookshop. Now this is John Smith's, unfortunately, John Smith and Sons bookshop, and it was the oldest bookshop in the world.
Oh, wait, was it in Glasgow?
In Glasgow.
It was?
In Glasgow,
okay.
And it closed down in June.
Oh, no.
And that's a great tragedy. Robert Burns used to buy his books there, not when I was there.
Okay, not that old,
And
though.
I was, the reason I started writing was because of, I was 18, it was because of a humiliation. You know how very sensitive you are. And there was this actress who was resting working in the bookshop, very glamorous, and she used to take me over to the Citizens Theatre, which was a repertory theatre, and I'd meet the actress and I was stage struck. Well, she moved on, you see, and there was this girl in the bookshop who was rather grand and I wanted to impress, and I said, "Oh, I go to shows at the Citizens Theatre and I have coffee with the actress afterwards." Oh, she's very impressed. I said, "I'll take you over." And it was King Henry IV Part 2. I remember it's Fulton Mackay and John Grieve. And I took her backstage and they said, "Oh, Marion, I'm sorry, we're not going for coffee. It's union meeting tonight." I said to her, "Oh," and I said to her, "We'll go for coffee." Went into the cafe next to the theatre and they all walked in 10 minutes later.
Oh.
Because an 18-year-old bookseller who does not have a glamorous actress with her is, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I died of humiliation. I died. So I thought I must make my mark. I wrote to the Renfrew Press offering my services free. I thought they might be glad of them because they had marvellous typos, like the provost and his wife entered the gaily decorated hell, and the marriage of Mr. and Miss so-and-so was consummated before the altar to the sound of the organ, you know, and I thought, well, maybe they might like a free reporter, but didn't even reply. And I'd read Dorothy Sayers' Murder Must Advertise, I thought, I'll be a copy
There you
copy
are.
editor, and who knows, I may be Lord Peter Wimsey. So I wrote off, and only one man replied, and he said, look, I just wanted to look at you. He said, I admire your cheek. He said, but please, take my advice. If you ever apply for a job again, do not, please, do not say you edited the school magazine. He said, lie. Say you've had articles published, lie. But never say you edited the school magazine. So I thought about that. Then this woman came into the bookshop. She wanted a cookery book for a bachelor, and I said, well, don't waste your money on expensive books. There's a government publication, very cheap, and it tells you how to make tea and boil eggs. And we had a chat. It was a very genteel bookshop. We were allowed morning coffee, afternoon tea, so I went out for my coffee. 2 weeks later, and she was there, and she called me over and said, come and join me. And she was features editor for the Scottish Daily Mail. And she said, look, these lazy reporters, all I want is a reporter to go out to the Rutherglen Rep, which was an amateur thing, and report on the pantomime of Cinderella, because the editor's nephew is one of the ugly sisters. And I said, I'll go. She said, well, it's only 50 words. Have you ever written anything? I said, yes, I've had articles published, but they're home in Renfrew, and you want it done tonight, so there's no time. I'll do it. And she said, oh, well, just mention the editor's nephew. So I got a big reporter's notebook. Here I have thudding. I went out, and I did that, and I thought that's the end of my glory. But the office boy turned up next week, tickets for the Glasgow Empire, which was vaudeville. And I moved from there very rapidly to become the theatre critic. So at the age of 19, I was sitting in the critics' seats at the Citizens Theatre.
And now they had to pay attention to you. That's a lovely story. It just took a lot of what we might call chutzpah, huh? I like that very much.
And then I was a fashion editor of Scottish Field magazine.
Were you?
And then I was employed by the Scottish Daily Express as Scotland's new emergent writer. And I proceeded to submerge because I'd been writing the editorial We lost our head. I didn't know you had to ask people their first names and ages. But worse than that, the feature editor was having an affair with a fashion artist who I would not employ in Scottish Field because it wasn't upmarket enough for work. And I didn't know that he was throwing all my work in the bucket. So at conference he said, what's Marion Chesney doing, which my maiden name, and they'd say nothing. So I was nearly getting a sack.
Wow.
And the news editor said he'd try me out, and I broke a murder story, and I remember coming in at 1 in the morning and seeing my name rolling down all the front pages and the tears running down my face, you know. And then I moved to London to the Daily Express there. I became chief woman reporter there.
I didn't realize you'd been such an illustrious journalist. You had lots of nonfiction practice, didn't you? Or was it really fiction in some part?
Well, it was, I was more interested in the Walter Mitty dreams in my head. I'd wake up in the morning, if I had a really good dream, I'd try and save a bit of it for bedtime, you know. So, excuse me, cold. That led to reporting on the dreams inside my head, you see. Who's in and the research.
So one day, I know that you have written an enormous number of Regency novels under your name, Marion Chesney, because I think I first read you, I think, when you were writing a Regency.
Yes, that happened because I'd been working on Rupert Murdoch's Star in New York, and then I was freelancing, but I desperately wanted something that I could sit at home and write and look after the child, take him to school, walk the dog, do the shopping, you know, without the stress of worrying about the child.